So it is in that bipartisan spirit that I welcome our friend and our governor, Tim Walz.
Really kind. Thank you. Well, thank you, Steve, for the kind introduction. More importantly, thank you for the work you and your team do. I can't imagine a Minnesota without JCRC. As an elected official, as a member of Congress over the years, the interactions that I was able to have with JCRC and the ability to be able to bring us together in that bipartisan manner to move those really important pieces of security and inclusion in our community is something I am very proud of. So thank you for that, Steve, and thank you for your work. Lots of folks are being thanked. The members of Congress who are here, thank you. I may be the one person in this room, other than you, that knows what you're going through there. But what I can tell you this, as the one person in this room knows, I watch our delegation and I watch them work in a bipartisan manner, especially around this issue, especially around fighting anti-Semitism or support of Israel. This delegation comes together, they work together, and I think that is evident tonight with Representative Stauber, Craig, and Phillips all here together working towards that. So thank you for that. I'm joined tonight by a part of our cabinet. I believe Department of Public Safety Commissioner John Harrington is here also. John, I wanted to thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you. And to those legislators that are here that you just saw stand up, to the members of the House and Senate, I just want to say thank you. As a Minnesotan, first and foremost, not as governor, that the dignity that you conducted yourself this session, the ability to work together, and at the end of the day, put Minnesota's interests ahead of small and short-term political interest was something I am incredibly proud of. And I know Lieutenant Governor Flanagan and I are honored when we're representing the executive branch, and we oftentimes say, we understand in Minnesota very clearly there are co-equal branches of governments. We have representatives here from the judicial branch, we have the legislative branch and the executive branch, and in this case, working in the best interest of Minnesota, just like why you're here tonight, to try and get effective policies done that improve people's lives. So thank you all for that work. There are so many here that I'm not going to have time to thank everybody, but I look out across this room in the short time I was walking around. It seems like every one of my friends are in this room. And I get to thinking, wow, what's the chance of, at JCRC, it's people who I saw or talked about were at the Crohn's and colitis walk to find a cure this morning, or we're at another event. It's because JCRC and JCRC supporters are at the core of our communities in all aspects of life that are impacting and making Minnesota and the Dakotas such a great place to live. So it's great to see all of you. I thank you for being here. We've got some folks here maybe for the first time supporting this organization, and I am proud that this is the 80th anniversary, and congratulations. I'm also excited that this is clearly almost standing room only, which is a wonderful thing, but I think it is disingenuous of us not to call out why we know the crowd here is so big, because we are living in dangerous times. And we have seen anti-Semitism, as it's always been there, but rear its ugly head once again. We've seen horrific acts of violence in Pittsburgh and across this nation, and even closer to home. And that's why you're gathered here tonight. And I think that quote was beautiful, and I'm going to save my final thanks and just a brief reason why. It is a privilege to be here with Professor Lipstadt. Maybe some of you did not know this. I had a life before I was this handsome governor, before that time. That's my wife rolling her eyes. I'm a school teacher, but I don't know if many of you knew this. My area of focus was on cultural studies, and specifically on genocide studies. And I was part of the very first group of Belfour teachers and Belfour fellows to the Holocaust Museum in the spring of 1993 before it opened. And I would say, and tonight, and it's, I don't believe in luck, I think things happen for a reason, and having the professor here who was integral in the work that I was doing, I think of yourself, ma'am, and Hannah Arendt had a big impact on how we approach this issue of the Holocaust and Holocaust studies. And the reason that when the museum was opening, this piece, and many of you know this well, but as a high school teacher, the education component of the Holocaust Museum and the education component of JCRC, that sets at the core of how we get at anti-Semitism. And I tell you, we need to be forever vigilant. We need to be in the moment providing security. Those are absolutes. We need to be processing and doing legislation and policies to make people more secure and to stomp down anytime it raises its head. But all of us know this is a learned behavior. It starts with education. It starts at the core of where people get this. And for me, the reason I was so interested in it, I was teaching a few years before that, and what I found and you can put the statistics on the board, it's horrifying when they ask Americans how many people know what the Holocaust was or remember it. But the one thing I saw was, and this was the early 90s, my students could talk about the Holocaust, but they talked about it like a historical anomaly, that it was caught in time. And they would always write it out. Yes, the ancient evil that it is, but they would write it off to a few evil people, monsters that rose up. And they did not see, and we did not teach to talk about what were the causes that led to it. Where were the points of interference that we could have stepped in and stopped it from getting to that point? What could we have done as a society to truly not just say, and we teach in schools, we would always say that, why are we teaching the Holocaust? Well, for never again. Then teach the students the things that make sure never again ever happens again. And that's the piece. In this room, we have the foremost scholar that will talk about this, that will talk about anti-Semitism, and it is amongst us. And there's a reason that when we start young with our students so they can start to identify, it's a reason that people don't understand when an anti-Semitic trope comes up, why the need to squash that immediately, to stomp that out, is so critically important. That education piece on the front end that JCRC does, that piece on the front end that we as a state need to be forever vigilant, is how we make sure we start to turn the tide. And we know that hatred in all of its forms is on the rise. But this particular form of hatred, we've seen, we know it, and we know what the outcome can be if we don't do this right. So I can tell you, as governor of Minnesota, that's one thing. As a teacher and a parent, that's another. And I can absolutely tell you that if this room is not full with advocates like each and every one of you, if JCRC doesn't last another 80 years, if we are not here to listen to scholars like Professor Lipstadt, then we will know what the outcome will be. We do know where this leads because we've seen it before. And so for each of you to take time out of your schedule, to give of your resources, to give of your time, and give of your talents, not only makes this community safer, it makes all communities safer. It lets Minnesota rise to the place where we know we need to be. So on behalf of what I hope to be after watching that video, my only hope is that the 5.5 million Minnesotans that aren't in this room get to see that video. That those 5.5 million Minnesotans get to hear the message. And the only way to do that is to ensure that JCRC has the resources and the ability to get that message out. The only way to do that is to ensure, like you saw here, and applauding our schools who took anti-Semitism head on, who said it will not happen in our schools. We will educate, we will make our students safe, and we will stop this now. That's what we have to do as Minnesotans. So I thank you all for being here. Our commitment in this state, we proved it last week. We can work together across party lines for the good of Minnesota. And as hatred continues to rise, and I don't know about all of you, it's a stain on the soul of who we are when I see it come up and we know it was true, that Minnesota and Minneapolis was at the heart of anti-Semitism at one time. Well, just like that was a learned behavior and an outcome of that, the learned behavior that we're looking for in this room is for this city to be a shining beacon of inclusion and a place where hatred stops. So I thank you all for being here and appreciate it.